Newvem is introducing two approaches for cloud management. The first one, baseline cloud usage. The second one, advanced cloud usage. Let me explain to you more about basic cloud usage. This is primarily done in the manner of blocking and tackling an experiment or an embracement of the cloud to understand how the cloud can extend your data center, or how you can start a business fresh and native to the cloud. Basically, you're learning as you're going, you're operating first and improving second. Our baseline cloud usage basically came out of an empirical study of the way hundreds and thousands of our cloud customers initially embraced the cloud. They wanted to look at their assets, they wanted to look at their spend, they wanted to identify exposures, and they wanted to continuously improve their initial deployments. In the advanced cloud usage, we go to the next level. At the next level, we want to take a more strategic approach to cloud deployment and cloud usage by looking at our business and aligning our infrastructure to our business in a planned way. For the strategic and business-aligned approach of our advanced cloud usage, we decided to go back to the source of computing and to see how the data center has been operating for the last 30 years and see how we can extend the models that have been developed for the data center into the models that should be used for cloud usage. For Newvem's advanced cloud usage approach, we decided to adopt the ITIL 3.0 framework as a reference source for cloud usage, where we extend the data center where its capacity focus and resource focus view into the business orientation of utility and elastic computing. ITIL 3 is separated into 5 core processes: service strategy, service design, service transition, service operation, and continual service improvement. Applying ITIL 3.0 to cloud usage, we believe that first we need to strategize what are the business objectives and business drivers that we're trying to provide a very elastic and scalable infrastructure for. We want to design the service that we're giving our users based on this elastic infrastructure. We need to transition from where we are today for where we want to deploy. And then we need to start delivering and executing around the service level that we said we want to accomplish here. Once we get to the deployment, then we go back and look at how are we operating and start thinking how we can improve our current operation to arrive at the plan that we initially set forth to accomplish. Service strategy. With service strategy, we start with looking at the business and aligning the infrastructure to the business that we want to deliver. However, we want to look at the financial implications of the service that we want to deliver and make sure that it's viable, or in other words, it's profitable. Service level has two sides to it. On the one hand, it's what you want to deliver to your customer or user. I call that the demand for the service level. And on the other side, you have the supply of the infrastructure required to meet that demand. In most cases, the demand side of the equation will be fulfilled by an SLA, by a service level agreement or contract to a customer, to a user. On the supply side, this is where we need to come into an agreement on what is the level of availability that we want, what is the capacity that we want to start with, what are the levels of utilization that we're going to manage that capacity to, and once we reach thresholds of filling up that capacity, how are we going to scale our infrastructure so that our capacity increases and our ability to withstand that level of demand is met. For the supply side of service level design, and again when we'll meet it in transition and delivery, we have a balance and a trade-off between 4 components: the capacity that we want, the utilization that we intend to run that capacity with, the availability of resource that we want to always have, and the way that we're able to scale, or scalability, in order to continuously ensure that we do not run out of capacity and we run our resources at the utilization that we demand of ourselves. Now we need to move into the transition of implementing our design and then eventually delivering against that design. From design, we transition to the operations, whether we have something that's already working or we start from scratch on a redeployment. This is where cloud baseline usage meets advanced cloud deployment usage. We're now looking at the delivery of the infrastructure against the business. The next phase of our framework is adding a new dimension called service level lifecycle management. This is where we're looking at the relationship between the actual design, the actual operations, which is the baseline usage, and then looking at the different stages of a deployment's lifecycle. What are the phases of service level lifecycle deployments? We start with the initial testing of an environment. We go through a full block and tackling of operational management and baseline, and then we learn from that and we want to apply it for the next phase of deployment, which is the actual staging of that testing. From the staging, we want to move to production, and from production, we move to the continuous ongoing change and maintenance of a production deployment. To capture the knowledge and the learning within each stage of lifecycle, we're incorporating 3 activities into modules. The first is asset and asset management, where we're capturing the resources we're using in each one of these stages. The second is the change that we're implementing within these life cycles. And the third is capturing the relationship between the asset and the change, and that's the configuration element of this bundle. There's another element that we have to take into consideration. These service level prerequisites include IT service continuity, information security management, compliance audit, access, and authentication. In addition, we are integrated into the release and deployment systems of a given cloud, where Newvem interfaces with the system management application for the actual execution of the change. At the core of Newvem's cycle of continuous improvement, we have 4 steps. Step 1 is plan, step 2 is measure, step 3 is analyze, and step 4 is improve. With plan, we look at the strategy that we initially tried to implement, or we look at a refined version of that strategy based on what we learned in the previous phase. With measure, we define first what we want to measure. Then we gather the data, and we process the data in order to make sure that we're measuring the most relevant components of the plan. Then we analyze. We basically analyze the information and the data that we've collected, and it is very important to simplify it and to make it relevant for the user to understand exactly what is the recommendation for improvement. And improvement, or improve, is basically the execution of that recommendation coming from our analysis, from the information we gathered, in order to meet the plan that we're trying to refine and execute. Newvem's advanced cloud usage is our attempt to bring the cloud from an external factor to an internal factor within the data center. We're adopting the framework of the data center that has evolved for 30 years, and we're applying it to cloud usage, where cloud usage could be a natural extension of the data center and not something totally separate.